I was born clairvoyant. I come from a very long line of mountain witches from Appalachia.
What is one of the most scariest experiences you've had with the
Actually,
paranormal?
when we were at the Conjuring House, you like flash with flashlight over that direction, and when he
You were saying, I was like, I'm on the edge of my seat, and it went out. I'm like, maybe something's happening. Is somebody in the room with us? What happened?
and that is like classic Skinwalker.
She is the co-host of the most haunted city on earth podcast, Madison Timmons.
If somebody wanted to communicate with one of their past loved ones and they're not clairvoyant, what is a way that they could get to their loved ones?
And it had fallen onto her, and like she was super cut up, covered in glass. And
Welcome back to Blonde Highlights.
Today we have a really fun guest. She is the co-host of the most haunted city on earth podcast, Madison Timmons.
Hi.
And if you've never seen your podcast, which if you're on TikTok and you like anything paranormal, I'm sure you've seen it.
Absolutely.
You guys are like, you're talking about Savannah, Georgia, right?
Yes. So that was like the original intent when we made the podcast. We both live in Savannah. My co-host Kris has been here for over 30 years. I've lived here for almost 10 years. And so we were like, oh, we'll talk about how spooky Savannah is and all the stories and stuff. And we didn't expect it to like do as well as it did. And so we got into a period of time where we're like, okay, we need to expand outside of Savannah. So we do talk about all hauntings all over the world, all different cultures and things like that now. But originally, the most haunted city on earth, we claim is Savannah, Georgia. And I know the New Orleans people are going to come at me for that, but that's fine. That's what we feel.
Like, come at me.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it just in the American South, like there is a handful of cities that are just like really haunted.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also, mind y'all, if you hear any like weird noises in the background, hopefully they don't come through with my headphones. But we have the museum open on the other side of this wall. And my eyes just like popped out of my head because somebody just blew a Aztec death whistle copy. So it sounds like a woman screaming.
Oh my God.
And I almost lost my mind for a second, but yes.
No, we welcome all those sounds. It's fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, your question though, with so many different cities being uber haunted, definitely, especially in the US, because we have a few cities that are particularly more haunted. It's hard to compare them to other places around the world that have been civilized for longer and have longer histories than we do. But I would say Savannah, New Orleans, slightly St. Augustine as well. I would say those are our most haunted places. But you can find, it depends on what you're rating haunting on. So some people like to say how many ghost stories they've heard from an area. Savannah, we get it a lot because we have the highest amount of ghost industry per capita than any other city in the country. And so personally, I feel like Savannah is a little bit more haunted just because we embrace our spirits a bit more. And so they're a little bit more active here versus other places that might have as many spirits, but they don't get celebrated as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I'm from a really small town in southeastern Ohio, and it's a pretty haunted town, but it is really small. Yeah. But it was one of those things where it was bigger in the 1800s, you know, like
right.
It's off a river that they used to access into the Northwest Passage originally. And so there was wars between the native people and, you know, the British, then Americans. There was part of the Underground Railroad. It was Civil War. Like so many crazy things have happened. And there's like so much lore around the paranormal in this town.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's exactly that. People, they love the lore. They love the stories. And we actually do a little bit of a segment that we call Small Town Haunts. We love going to investigate small towns because I find that the spirits that are there are excited to communicate with you. They're excited to be acknowledged because they're not as oftentimes interact with or acknowledged in general versus Savannah. Kris always says we have very well-fed ghosts. So giving them energy, it's like feeding the ghost. And so all of our spirits, though they are very active, sometimes they aren't as active because they don't need that validation. But we've been to like teeny tiny towns where they tell us like this place is very haunted, like you figure it out. And it was like immediate communication, immediate direct answers. And it was like they were just waiting for somebody to ask them a
We love an
question. It's very
underdog.
sweet.
That's so
Yeah.
cute.
I
We love an
know.
underdog. It's so cute.
I know. It's so sweet. Yeah, I love it. I love going to small towns for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speak of that, have you ever heard of Prospect Place or the Trinway Mansion?
I don't think so.
Oh, never mind.
Where
Oh,
is
it's
it?
oh,
No,
it's
you're
like,
totally
no,
fine.
it's
Where
like
is it?
it's like an hour east of Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
But a lot of the ghost shows have gone there to this like old mansion,
Sure.
and I've toured it too. But I was just curious when you were saying some of the small towns.
Yeah, totally. Ohio is like, I swear, Ohio's like a hotbed for ghosts and stuff. It's insane how many haunted places are up there.
Yeah, yeah. But I think it's just like a longer history.
Absolutely.
So, how did you know that you were clairvoyant? Am I saying that correctly? Clairvoyant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
clairvoyant.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of interesting. I like to tell people that I didn't get into paranormal stuff on purpose. It was kind of just like gonna be a part of my life, whether I liked it or not. But basically, I was born clairvoyant. I come from a very long line of mountain witches from Appalachia, from Western North Carolina. My grandmother was a clairvoyant, really, really talented clairvoyant, and also clairaudient. Um, and so it just kind of got passed down to me as well. But the first encounter that I can really pinpoint as everybody acknowledging that I had the abilities too was when I was about 3 or 4 years old or so. My grandmother had already passed at that point, and she passed away very early in her life. She was rather young. She was only like in her early 60s. And so um, she never really got to know me very well. And I didn't really know her either because, you know, how parents are. They don't, it's difficult to discuss death and more heavy topics with a young child. And it just wasn't appropriate yet to explain why my grandmother wasn't with us. And so basically, I would come down in the morning and tell my parents, Grandmommy came to visit me last night. And I did not know what she would have wanted me to call her. I did not know what she looked like. I had never seen a photo of her, nothing at this point. And my parents' eyes just like pop out of their head and they're like, what did you just say to us? And so they would, you know, ask me questions like, what did she talk about? What did she look like? Blah, 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 blah. And I was able to perfectly describe her. She had a very particular hairstyle she always wore. She always had her hair up and it's almost like beehive sort of hairstyle. I would tell them that she was just checking in on us. She would ask like questions about my dad because that was his mom and things like that. And she would come to visit me pretty often until I was about a teenager or so. And so my parents would be like, well, how do you know she's coming to visit? I'm like, well, I'd see the light come in through the window. And
Oh.
so, yeah. And because I just like, I knew all these details about her, like I knew where she was from, I knew her name, I knew like all these things. My parents were like, oh my God, she got it too. Because it used to freak my dad out. Because you know he grew up with her and she was an old school granny witch, so she it was dangerous at the time when she was alive, you know, to be outspoken about your practices and things like that. So tarot wasn't necessarily something you did in public, so she read a deck of cards and she would basically be able to predict like crazy things that would actually happen. She predicted my mom coming into my dad's life, even though he was with somebody else at the time.
Wow.
She was able to predict like that they were going to have a girl first and all these things. And so, yeah, that basically just got handed down to me. So we'll see where my abilities develop in the future, but I'm hoping I get that one because it's pretty cool. But
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like
yeah,
I've heard a lot where a lot of the times spirits are well able to communicate with kids because they don't know really about it, or they don't force themselves to not believe it. Do you think that's a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Children are the most open in general to perceiving anything.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say that as we get older, we have to put on this kind of armor to protect us and also not get ridiculed in life, just because you're seeing things or experiencing things that are abnormal to the typical experience. And so children haven't had to put that armor on yet. I mean, it's also the reason why you'll hear like a lot of people who say, I had a lot of experiences when I was a kid. I don't really have so much anymore. Doesn't mean that the ability went away. It's just that they've had to guard themselves so much that it's blocking in a way. And so I got lucky because I had family who were very open to the idea. So I never really had to put on that armor and block off my abilities. And I was able to nurture them, but
Oh,
that's not the case for a lot of people.
yeah.
But kids are literally, if a kid says something, they're seeing something, more than likely they were telling you the truth.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's crazy. It is crazy what children will experience.
My sister had this little mirror, and it was one of those mirrors, those like little vanities, and the mirror wasn't really a mirror. It was like a sheet of some sort of metallic
Sure.
paper. And anytime she was near there, she would freak out and be like, scary shadows in there, scary shadows in there. And I was like, absolutely not. So like, I bet you she's
Oh
really
my gosh.
clairvoyant, but like I did not allow that. Sometimes she
Yeah.
could have had
Right.
these abilities, but I shut that right down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do not blame that. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, some people just don't want to experience those
Mm-mm.
things, and that's totally fine too. Yeah, like some people don't want to see the shadows
The
in the
scary
mirror,
shadow.
which is
Yeah.
totally fine.
That's me. Like ever since I was little, I've had, and I don't think that I have any like psychic abilities in any way, but I have had paranormal experiences since I was a little kid up until adulthood. And then I had a situation in an apartment that just, it traumatized me so much that now I'm like, I don't know, no,
Yeah.
I just like am so
Exactly.
blocked off from it.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it too, because it can be scary. And that's a really common experience where people are like, I've had my share, I don't want it anymore. And that's totally fine to cut off that connection, because that is the key whenever you're dabbling in these sort of, connections with otherworldly beings. We have free will to do whatever we want. It is fully our choice if we want to engage with people. Just like how it's fully our choice to engage with humans that
Mhm.
are still alive. It doesn't go away even
Mhm.
after they are onto a different plane. And so, yeah, that is a very valid experience and
Yeah.
Yeah.
reaction. But
What is one of the most scariest experiences you've had with the paranormal?
oh my gosh. Yeah, I saw that question when you all were sending some sample questions, and I was
Hmm.
really racking my brain about this because I've been lucky that a lot of the encounters I've had are not too awful.
Hmm.
I like to think because I have a very strong group of the spirits and things like that that are kind of shielding me. But I would say it was actually when we were at the Conjuring House last January, which I know is going to sound so cliche, but it is very haunted. And it's right that it's so beloved for it. But when we were doing our investigation, I want to say it was around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And we decided because we were all just freezing in the house, we were like, we need to move, we need to walk around. So we decided to go outside to just like kind of like get our blood moving and just kind of see what else we can find on the property because it's massive. It's in the middle of rural Rhode Island.
Hmm.
And so it's like pitch black out there. And we're like walking around with our flashlights. And I start hearing something that sounds like it's kind of rustling, like leaves rustling, which was
Hmm.
odd because there was a really thick sheet of like snow on the ground. So I'm like,
Oh.
what the hell?
Oh.
And so I was like, that's really strange. And so I like basically I tell Kris because he's like walking with me, and our one of our editors, Sabria, who's horrified of everything, and so I was trying really hard to not scare her, but I was like, Kris, I think I'm hearing something that sounds really odd. Can you like flash your flashlight over that direction? And when he
Oh no, she froze.
Has an entities. Can you hear us, Alex? Oh my God, right in the middle of the story. Oh my God. Yeah, they were about to put the flashlight over. I'm on the edge of my seat. Hello?
Oh, okay,
Oh my
there we
God,
go.
hi.
Hello. Oh my gosh. That was so weird. Okay.
Okay.
Even worse that was like a terrifying story. So
That's what we were
Yeah.
saying. I was like, I'm on the edge of my seat and it went out. I'm like, maybe something's
I
happening.
know.
Is somebody in the room with us? What happened?
We have like multiple objects in this space that I'm in right now, and then on the other side of the wall too, that are known to mess with electricity and electronics in general. So I'm like really hoping it wasn't that. But
Yeah.
But
yeah, so there you go. Y'all know it's real at least. So for real. Um, but yeah, so it was standing on all fours, very animalistic. It's like hind up in the air. And that is like classic skinwalker, the
Mhm.
way people depict it. And it like I take my flashlight, and I flash it back where I saw it, and I see it fully formed. It's right there and it's looking right at us. It had these like bright red eyes.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, and for some reason, nobody else saw anything. Kris later saw it that night, but at a different time. But I was like, so y'all, let's go ahead and head back inside.
Inside.
yeah.
Don't run. I'm not going to tell you what's going on, but don't run. Don't act like crazy. But let's just mosey back in because oftentimes when you encounter an entity like that, the worst thing you can do is freak out
Out.
and panic because it
Why?
will chase you. They're
Okay.
known to chase
Mhm.
people. And so I'm like, stay calm, just walk with haste back into the house and it'll be fine. Yeah, so I would say that was like the scariest thing because that was the closest I'd been to an entity that I know very well could actually harm one of us.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, there was just like something about that entity that I'm like, this is no good. And the fact that we saw it later in the investigation in the evening, and JT, who's our director and producer, he actually got scratched on the property while it's outside. So
Um,
I'm like, this is
no.
not good.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, I would say that was probably the scariest for me. Because I don't typically get freaked out by entities because I know that I have a little bit more domain.
Yeah.
Because I live in this realm. It's a little bit more difficult for them. So it doesn't freak me out as much. But I'm like, if I know that you're gonna come after me, I'm not trying to be here for
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
exactly.
Your
Super
poor
freaky though.
your poor Tabria was just like when you're like, okay, everybody just walk
Oh my
away.
gosh.
Imagine being her. I'd be like,
Oh.
what is happening?
She is terrified. She's so used to it now.
Yeah.
But she is like number one, keep calm, priority because she will screech, she will run, she will literally run for the hills.
I love that.
Um, yeah, and totally fair. But I was like, you are the last person I need actually
Yeah.
freaking out right now. So I'm
Yeah.
like, and so I was like, let's go inside. But
Yeah,
yeah, poor thing.
I saw that video on the TikTok and I was on
Yeah,
the TikToks.
On the
No, no,
TikToks.
I saw
on the
that and I
TikToks.
honestly was like, oh, I can't watch it. Like I was like, I can't open that
Yeah,
because I was like, oh no, I don't want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I
yeah.
visit my parents in like southeastern Ohio, like we're still in that Appalachian part of Ohio, like we're right on the border of West Virginia, and it's just forest outside, So I have always been so scared of the woods. And I never knew why until like
Fair.
all of this trend of everyone talking about like the woods and like Appalachia and all that. And I'm like, oh my God, is this why I was so terrified? Like something like that in the
Absolutely. I mean, your number one tool when you're investigating is your gut. If you feel like something is off, more than likely it is. Like we are naturally inclined to detect danger. And Appalachia just happens to be filled with it. I mean,
mm-hmm.
these folk stories don't come from anywhere, just like out of the ether. People had to experience something. to encounter that, and they don't live this long without people continuously experiencing it. So yeah, that is totally fair to be out in the woods there and just feel unnerved, because it's too much darkness, it's too much things that you can't see, too many noises. But yeah, I completely understand that.
Mhm.
What is the scariest story of like about paranormal activity that you've ever heard or that somebody's came to you with?
Ooh, okay. So this one's interesting because it actually happened here in Savannah. It's an actual, when I say demonic possession, it's not like it was close to an actual human getting to that point, but it was more of a possession of a house. So we had these girls who reached out to us, and they were like, hey, we had this happen to us. I think it was like 10, 15 years ago here in Savannah when they were in school. And they had never told anyone this story, like no other podcast, no, like nothing. They like had told their story to a TV show and they twisted it in a weird way, but that was about it. Um, and so basically, it was these three women, and they were all living in a house actually fairly close to where we filmed the podcast. And basically, one evening, it was like a normal night. It was their last semester before they graduated, and a transformer in the neighborhood exploded out of nowhere.
Oh.
Um, which sounds like it wouldn't cause anything, but a lot of times entities, especially entities that require a lot of energy, will be drawn to those big surges. That's why oftentimes we'll look for if there's major electrical surges near a property that's having problems, or transformers being nearby, because they just constantly are exerting it. Can also cause effects on humans in general. So it can kind of give you a little bit of an explanation if it isn't paranormal. But in this case, it exploded, and then literally that night, all hell broke loose. They essentially that evening started hearing noises like somebody was walking around their house, and they went into one of the girls' rooms, and they had like this girl had a Funko Pop sort of collection, like a massive collection, and she had them all on her walls. And they heard this like really loud noise come from her bedroom. So they go in, and they come in and immediately see all of the Funko Pops turned around.
Oh, fuck no.
Oh.
No, that.
Oh, it gets so much worse. It gets so much worse. Yeah, and so that was like in the first like early stages of what we would call the demonic possession. And so essentially after that, it just really progressed over and over again to some of them were having dreams of this entity that was breaking into the house. One of the girls was particularly affected by this entity where it would come into her bedroom at night, and it looked like this older woman with long black hair, and she was like kind of soggy looking and stuff. Her dog would not go into the room with her at all, which is always like a telltale sign.
Mhm.
Um, and so they just kept having all these like really profound experiences that only one time that would set somebody off the edge, but they were living with it for months. And so they got to the point where they were all like sleeping in their living room because that was the only place they felt safe. And they asked a couple investigators that live here, really great investigators, and they asked them to come try to cleanse the space, to try to push whatever it is out, which can be helpful, but sometimes it can also irritate whatever you're dealing with and make it more forceful, because especially when you're living and cohabitating with something that would be considered malevolent or demonic, for lack of a better term. And so sometimes it really will sink its heels in because it doesn't
Mhm.
want to leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after that, two of the girls go home for like a weekend or something, and the one who's left there, she is hearing all these noises. She is like seeing the entity. She's seeing it, and she all over the house. She's freaking out, and apparently one of the other girls gets a call from this girl, but it was like this voice that did not sound human. It was just like this like kind of
Mm.
animalistic noises, and the other girl was asleep at the time when the call was made. And so after that, the girl who was home alone with this entity, she freaked out, and she's like, "You guys need to come back immediately. Like, we need to get this handled." And so the night that they were supposed to go, we happened to have an exorcist here in Savannah at the cathedral, which
Mm-hmm.
not all cities have. We just happened to have one. So they went to the cathedral and they reached out to this father to tell him what was going on. He was supposed to be going out of town, and he was like, "But I'll make an exception. I'll be there in a couple hours. And I'll head right out after I'm done with you guys," because he could see their desperation. And before he could get there, the girl who was really getting affected by it, she was sitting in her bed, and the other two girls were in the living room, and they hear this super loud bang come from her bedroom, and they walk in, and I think it was like she had like a chandelier or something hanging from her
Mm-hmm.
roof, and it had fallen onto her, and like she was super cut up, covered in glass, and she had no idea that it happened. Like
What
she had no recollection
recollection?
of this,
Yeah.
yeah, of this happening. And so the father came, and basically kind of like set it at bay, but they don't really think that it's fully gone, which is interesting.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and so after that, luckily the girls graduated, they were able to leave. But two of them said every time we tell this story to somebody, we that entity shows up in our dreams. So
Oh.
yeah. So I worry that they might still be tethered to it to a degree. But yeah, I would say that was the most terrifying experience that I've heard, just because the girl who got cut up, that is like one of the last stages before you enter the realm of like an actual person being possessed. Because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times people will get cut, like that kind of loss of blood allows entities to just come and go. A lot of times, demonic type entities will want to draw blood and things like that. So we are like, oh my God, I'm so glad that you're with us right now. But yeah,
Wow.
just terrifying though. I can't even imagine like living with that. And yeah, they literally have never told anybody else but us, except for media wise. But yeah, it's very scary.
Wow.
Oh, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also what scares me is with this story is when I was telling you, like, I had a situation in my old apartment, like it was an entity that like I believe was malevolent, and it was a really crazy situation, and I left the apartment early. But like a month ago, I saw the entity in a dream, and I was stuck in sleep paralysis. I went into work the next day, and I was like, I don't know. I put like the evil eye bracelet on. I was saging. I was just like, we're getting smoked
Hmm.
out in here. I don't know. Like,
Exactly.
and it
Yeah.
freaked
I
me out
mean,
because
and
I was like, is it just a dream, or was that like, because nothing's happened in a long time?
right. Well, and that's the thing is like our brains do, when we go through traumatic things, we do retain those memories, and sometimes it can come through like that. But it's always good to take the precaution after if you feel like you were being visited, smoke
Mm-hmm.
cleansing, just general cleansing of your space, of yourself in that way. Yeah, wearing protection, spiritual protection and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all those sorts of things are always a great precaution to take. But if you're not like, luckily, if you're not like constantly experiencing this, or there's not something to pinpoint that brings it up, it's like, hopefully it's just like a kind of happenstance thing, or it's trying to get back in.
Yeah.
But you did the right thing of like kind of closing the door.
Yes.
How can you tell the difference? Like, say, if you've lost a loved one and they say that, oh, they come to visit you in your dreams, but sometimes it's like, okay, is this just like a memory, or maybe you're thinking of that person? How can you tell if it's just like your brain taking you there in your sleep, or like you were with that person in your sleep, like they visited you? Is there a difference in that?
So there can be. A lot of times the experiences that people, I would say it's the number one ghost story that we hear is that the night that so and so passed away, they came to visit me in their sleep. So it's usually you can connect it to the event of it happening because that will often mean like their loved one will come to see them just kind of to create closure. There's a bunch of people who have had the experience
Mm-hmm.
where they didn't even know that their loved one had passed and they found out the next morning after the visitation. I like to say that you usually, there's a difference in the energy that you feel. Kind of like, when somebody walks into the room and it's someone you know really well and you just know it's their presence. It's
Hmm.
sort of that because we all have our own little energy signatures. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's somebody that you spent a lot of time with or you love deeply, you'll oftentimes recognize that signature and you just like kind of feel it in your gut.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, versus a dream, you don't necessarily have that same feeling, that sensation of I'm feeling your presence with me.
That's really interesting because there was a time when it was not that long ago, I lost someone very close to me, and I have had dreams, but the one morning I woke up and I was so taken back because I was like, it was like I felt their present, like I was like physically feeling how I felt around that person. And it was like a very different shift of just like having a dream and we're like, driving in a car or whatever. It was like very real. And when I woke up, I had felt like I was just in the room with that person.
Right. Yeah, I would say more than likely that was them visiting.
Okay.
Because it can help a lot with people's grief process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that every single loved one that we lose necessarily will come to visit, because I think really they can tell when it's going to be helpful for you versus when it's going to hinder
Yeah.
your grieving process. But if you're experiencing that sensation, I would say you definitely did get visited, and they were just more than likely checking up on you or um, there to bring comfort to you in some kind of capacity. But
Oh, wow. Okay. So there is
mm,
that difference. I was like, am I going crazy? Or like, I'm like, is this
Yeah.
real?
and
Because I've never experienced anything like that. And
sure.
I had a very similar sort of experience with this. Oh, sorry. Um, Shortly after their death. So it's just, I think our listeners too, I think would like to know that if that's happening to you, then it
Absolutely.
is, that peace and comfort that you can take from that.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
what are some non-traditional ways that spirits will try to like contact you?
Oh gosh. They've gotten more creative as I've gotten older. And
Hmm.
so yeah, I would say I've had experiences since I moved into the house I'm currently in, where we're underneath an Airbnb, and I've had some experiences where they come to me in my dream, but it's in more of a lucid way, and then when I wake up, they're there. That was the first time I ever experienced that in my life was in this house, and um, it was the spirit of our house. Now, granted, I live in a house that was built in 1840, so you can
Hmm.
imagine there's a lot of stuff going on in here. But the um, spirit of the house is this man named Jim. He passed away really suddenly because he was unfortunately attacked and he was killed inside the house
Oh.
through like kind of a robbery gone bad back in the 50s.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I didn't know this until I was asleep one night and I was having this dream that I was him. I was in his body experiencing how he passed away. Um,
Oh, wow.
and so I was screaming in my sleep, and my partner started shaking me. I was like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Why are you screaming?" And I look up and I see Jim over in the corner of our room. And I was like, Jim's showing me things I don't want to see. And up until that point, we had like a ton of different like little nuisancey type activities where we have a back door that leads out to our backyard, and that would always be open. And even if we like made sure to like lock the door, we take photos because we're like, are we going in like insane? Are we just not locking our doors properly? So we take a photo of it being locked, and 5 minutes later, it'd be open. Had cabinets open on their own. We used to have like these little, you know, that trend where you teach your dog to press a button that says a word so they
Mm-hmm.
could
Yeah.
get like a treat or something. So we
Yeah.
were trying to do that, and one of those buttons had split, like somehow gotten under one of our like cabinets or something. I didn't even know it was down there, and we just kept hearing the button going off, like "feed me, feed me, feed me," and we're like,
Oh God.
um, but after that dream, it really mellowed down.
Yeah.
So for my interpretation of that was Jim was trying to get some kind of reassurance of like I was probably the first person who had lived in that house for since he was there, more than likely, who had that ability to connect with him. And so that was the validation he needed
Oh.
to be at rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had that experience in there, but I've also had some other spirits that have come and go from the Airbnb that are like attached to somebody. I had one that was like, can you tell her that like Rose, just tell her Rose. And I'm like, I don't know these people. Y'all are crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other thing that I've started experiencing is I practice yoga a lot. And when I am oftentimes in that kind of meditative state, like during Shavasana or something like that, I tend to be more open to receiving messages. And so I posted a TikTok about this because it was driving me insane. And I would, every time I go to this particular class, I would smell the smell of smoke. And the first time I smelled it, I was like, oh my God, something's burning. That what is happening?
Mhm.
And then same deal as Jim, where I saw this woman who passed away. She passed away very young. She passed away in a house fire. And I guess her aunt is in my yoga class. I still to this day can't figure out who it is. But she wanted me to tell her that she was okay, that she was
Aw.
at peace.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I was like, but she would not tell me who her aunt is. And that's the problem. Because I'm
Okay.
like, I'm not trying to Long Island medium these people.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's
it's just weird. It's weird for me. It's weird for other people because now I'm like spreading their trauma to the
yeah.
public,
No,
Mm-hmm.
but
no.
it's to the general facility. And so, yeah, I like have been really like egging her on to be like, please tell me who
Just
your aunt is. So
give a
I can
hint.
just tell, yeah, so I can like do it in private, where I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, if this resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. I'm crazy,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, so it's just little things like that. They've been coming through a lot with using smells and using images of their lives, which I'd never had before. When I would say up until I was about like 22 or so, I only saw apparitions. I didn't really have as much of the clairaudience or I guess it would be a form of claircognizance is seeing images in your mind's eye. But yeah, I'm like, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. They're gonna get you the message in any way they can, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
That's I'm just really in awe of that. I think
Yeah.
I I was wondering, I was like, do you ever have a spirit that's just kind of just being a brat, like just for the fun of it? Like, you don't need to tell anybody anything, but like, I'm just here to kind of play around.
Oh
Like, do
my
you get a
gosh.
playful spirit, like a brat?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yes. Yeah. It's especially when you're in Savannah, if so people like will hear me talk about all these experiences and they're like, "Oh my gosh, how are you having all these?" So even other people who are able to perceive, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have so many experiences." I'm like, Savannah is full of ghosts that just wanna get attention. And the building we're in right now has been notorious for that. They don't want to talk to you about anything in particular. They just want attention. Um, there's this one that we just started calling the trickster spirit. He's always been here. He's a shadowy entity, but he shows up as different things depending on who sees them. So pretty much we used to run a theater out of where the museum is now. And eventually, once you worked with us long enough, you were going to experience the trickster. And the trickster just irritated me because it was like he was literally playing pranks on people, but they were mean pranks. And so one time we had an actor who played the hag in the show, which is basically a Gullah Geechee folkloric creature. It's a sleep paralysis demon, and so he was at the end of a scene, and it was immersive, so he didn't get out of the bed immediately. He would lay there until the scene was over, and we distract people enough that he could get out of the bed. So he was laying there for a solid like 5 minutes or so. And he swore that he saw something that was dressed exactly like him in his hag costume, which is terrifying because we had like Hollywood grade horror masks that suction to the actor's face so that it moved with their facial features and stuff. And so he's like, I saw the hag come at me. And I'm like, and he literally was like almost in tears, like, I'm about to quit, like level of freaked out. And I'm like, honey, listen.
Yeah.
And like that is the same thing that everybody experiences. You just happen to get it the worst.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
like the worst time, which made him feel better. But yeah, it's like this thing just like will knock things off for no reason. It'll, mess with set pieces we used to have. It will come in here and move things and rearrange things. And it's just one of those things that we've tried to communicate and it's just doing it because it's bored.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I guess you got to do something with the afterlife if
Yeah.
that's your, if
Yeah.
that's your time.
Haunt, but make
it's
it
just
brat, like
literally,
yeah.
literally. Yeah, I'm just like, "Ugh, you're so annoying." And I say that out loud. I'm like, you are so irritating. You can stop now.
Yeah.
I acknowledge you. But
If somebody is experiencing some like paranormal activity in their home, what can they do to kind of protect themselves or kind of clear the space?
sure. There's a bunch of different things that you can do. Really, what's most common and pretty accessible nowadays is smoke cleansing. So, pretty much any metaphysical shop you're going to go to, or you can even, if you grow rosemary or sage or whatever in your garden, you can use that as well. Just making little bundles where you can burn them and just go through the house. And everybody has their own little vibe of how they go about this. So, some people are very ritualistic where they, say prayers or they say like different quotations that are used in cleansing ritual. And some people are just like, get the fuck out of my house, please.
Bye.
And that works perfectly fine too. So things like that, if you can't have smoke in your space for whatever reason, sound cleansing is really common too. You can literally take a bell and do the same thing that you would do with the smoke, where you're going through room to room to room with a window open or a door open or something, just to kind of let it all get out. But going through ringing a bell and saying the same things. You can put salt at your door if you just want to keep things out. I keep bells on my front door, so anything that's coming in has to be cleansed. It's getting
Oh.
sound cleansed so that it's like,
Okay.
yeah, because I'm like, I don't want your bad vibes in here. This
Nope.
is very curated.
Yep.
These are curated vibes. You gotta be right
Yeah.
before you come in here.
You're gonna check yourself at the door.
Exactly. So things like that. Also, so this one's the weirdest one, and this one's a little woo-woo, but take it with a grain of salt. There's a belief that if you have cats, that you can tell your cats what's going on because there's this thought process that cats kind of have like one peat between each plane, and so the cats can sometimes help get rid of unwanted energy. And I believe it because my cats are so super creepy. They they like in the middle of the night will come out and they'll be sitting both next to each other staring at my altar. And I'm just like, you guys are having your moment. Have
Okay,
fun.
yep.
Keep all the bad things out.
Yep. Do you?
So I'm like, exactly, if you're having serious problems, tell your cat.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll maybe they'll take care of it for you.
What are your thoughts on the Ouija board? And have you ever had an experience with that? Like I
Mm.
remember having that at like slumber parties and seeing it on like movies and stuff, and it was a huge thing. What is your experience or thoughts on it?
Okay, so I have interesting thoughts on this. So first off, fun fact, never ever used a Ouija board in my life. I went a step further. When I was a kid, I would do candle magic, unknowingly, because basically I grew up in a haunted house in Florida, and I had about the four entities that were in my space.
Mhm.
And I was just like, they just live here. That's cool. But I would take a candle because that's what I had. And I was like, I bet you anything I can like get them to say yes or no, depending on how many times they flick the flame. And so
Wow.
that's literally candle divination. And I was doing it 11. Very dangerous. Don't recommend that if you don't know what you're doing. But yeah, so I did it a little bit of a different way, and I was lucky. I The spirits that were in my house were very protective over me, because they quickly picked up on the fact that I had these abilities, and they were very guarding, because they were natives who lived on the land that we were in, and it was a mother and a father and two children that were on the upper floor. And so the parental spirits, they were very, very like any entity that even came near me that had any sort of malice in its being, it was
No.
like hitting a cement wall, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but with Ouija boards, it's not to say that I don't think people should ever use them. I don't encourage it. And it's not because it's the actual board. In theory, the board's just cardboard.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mhm.
it's the meaning that we give to it. And we've given the Ouija board so much intention for so long that entities know this by this point. When you're feeding that intention, it's going to be perceived eventually. Most of the time when people who use Ouija boards, they do not have the knowledge base to recognize when something is lying to them.
Oh.
Um, yeah, or they don't have a protection method in place, because anytime you're doing any form of divination, you do need to have certain levels of protection because things can go awry. I mean, we can't fully perceive what's happening on the other
Mm-hmm.
side. So you got to have these safeguards just for your own general sanity and also for your space.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get attached to something that is no good. Um, but with Ouija boards, it's so accessible to so many people, and they just think it's fun, and they just want to have that spooky experience. But it can get dangerous very quickly in the way that there's a lot of entities out there that are happy to tell you that they're your grandma,
Mhm.
and
Mm.
but they don't realize that grandma's not going to tell you the day you're going to die, or your
Okay.
grandma's yeah, grandma's not going to tell you certain information because there is a level of information that we are not supposed to know. Like, we as humans are not supposed to fully be aware of our own mortality or every aspect of the afterlife. So if you're getting fed something that is giving you this knowledge, like, it can be a gateway for you to this like secret world or the secret knowledge that nobody else has, you're dealing with something a little bit more dangerous. And that happens a lot to especially children,
Yeah.
because like what we were saying in the beginning, children are so trusting, they're so easy to convince of something. And so I just usually I'm like, it's best to just stay away from it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
let's just not. That's
Yeah.
fine. That's why we have different methods, but also it's like that's why we have some people who are more sensitive. I like to think that we're kind of like that vessel to give people that validation that they need, but in a more safe manner,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
A
Yeah,
controlled
Mhm.
manner.
exactly.
Exactly. And one thing that I hear a lot, and I mostly in like New Orleans, but I also heard about Savannah and St. Augustine, is like card shuffling. Like, what's your kind of thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
y'all, I had to look this up when I was like, hold
Oh,
on. Yeah, I was so shook because I knew this by a different name,
okay.
which made sense. So I always heard it as time slips. Because I was like, oh, we're talking about tarot because like New Orleans has like they're like all down with their tarot and it's super interesting. But time slips are fascinating. So time slips typically happen in historic places. Because there's so much of that energy still left behind. And oftentimes in historic places, we keep a lot of the items that would have been around from 100 years ago or whatever. There's a bunch of different theories of why time slips happen to people. I've never experienced one, and God, I don't want to because I
Hmm.
don't want to like end up in the 1800s out of nowhere. But yeah, I think it's because we both as cities, you can walk around and you feel at times like you are back in 1856, you know? So it might be that there's just this little crack in the veil, and sometimes people happen to go through it, and hopefully they make their way back. And there just might be locations that are thinner than others. And that could be for a number of different reasons. But I was like, what an interesting name to call it card shuffling
Hmm.
because it is kind of like that. It's like a look of the draw, like, oh, sorry, you got
Yeah.
the bag on. But yeah, New Orleans though, they have such a rich history on so many fronts and they have such a metaphysical like magical background. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's lots of holes in the veil throughout
Hmm.
New Orleans, just because there's so many practitioners and still there are so many different forms of magic going on and communing with the spirits. So it's like Savannah is very thin as well. So sometimes we just happen to make our way through. And
Yeah.
then hopefully they just send us on back.
Yeah.
Please send us back where
Yeah.
we're supposed to be. But it's fascinating. That it really is.
Yeah. I wonder if have you ever seen the movie Spirited Away?
Yes,
Okay, my
yes.
husband's like huge nerd, made me watch it, but I actually really appreciate it. And so I was learning about card shuffling. I'm like, is that what that whole movie was about? But to me it
Right.
was like painting that picture. But I I wanted to ask is instead of like a Ouija board or like the candle flickering, because you said that that was something to be dangerous, if somebody wanted to communicate with one of their past loved ones and they're not clairvoyant, what is a way that they could get to their loved ones?
Say tarot.
Oh, okay.
Learning tarot is a phenomenal way to communicate. But there is a little bit of a boundary there. And anybody can learn how to do tarot. You don't necessarily have to be honing in on your abilities. I like to think that everybody has some level of clear ability. There's 10 of them. So it's like you're going to have one at least,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
it's really if you dig into it. But I would say tarot is just like a great way to try to reach out. You can pick certain cards that you'll say, like, this card is going to be our card to let me know that I'm talking to you. But you also call in certain spirits when you're talking through tarot. So, like, for instance, my grandmother, who passed away, she actually came to me and y'all who are listening to this are going to be like, this woman's batshit crazy. But when I was the night I turned 18 years old, she came to me in a dream and she said, you need to learn how to read tarot because that's how we're going to talk in the future. And I did that. And she is like my number one communicator in the way of like, that's just how we keep up in certain ways. Or if I have questions of like, not saying like, is this what's going to happen? But like, I'm kind of in a crossroads. What way do you think I should go? We can communicate in that way,
Oh, okay.
um, which is pretty cool. And if somebody doesn't want to do tarot or it's just not their thing or whatever, there are so many practitioners out there that are really, really talented. You have to sort them out a little bit because some people they're just trying to make a quick buck.
We got
But
Sylvia
usually you
Browns
can
out there. Yep.
exactly. It's like you just gotta. I find if you can find out about someone through word of mouth, that's the best way to go. If just ask around and you're like, hey, have you had a reading done with somebody and you felt like you really resonated with it, or they felt really sincere? That's the best way to go about it. Because there's like really, even in Savannah, there's only like a very small select few practitioners that I would trust
Mm.
to do readings. Not to say that the others don't have abilities, it's just there's certain people who have honed in the ability to communicate on behalf of others, and that's a very
Hmm.
particular skill. Um, but yeah, so I would just say like if you're really like you really want to get like verbal confirmation, find a really good practitioner around you, ask around in the witchy communities, they will point you in the right
Yep.
direction, you know,
Okay.
because yeah, because if people are insincere and you're in a witchy community, because oftentimes, no matter how big your city is, they're not huge communities. So it's like everybody will know at least one person who is like, oh, that person's really gifted in this. Go see them, you know.
Okay.
Don't ever, and also don't ever, if somebody messages you on like TikTok or Instagram and they're like, I'll do a reading for you, that is a scam. Don't do that.
Okay.
Hmm.
So kind of seek
Yeah,
it yourself. Okay. Because I've always
exactly.
I've always wondered like what are the telltale signs between someone who's legit or who is running a scam?
Yeah, so I find that oftentimes when people are like not necessarily as gifted in it, they use a lot of props. And when I say props, I mean like they have everything, the tarot cards, the oracle cards, the crystal balls, the scrying mirrors, like they bring out every big gun. I feel like that's a lot of like flashy smoke and mirrors sort of thing to distract from what they're doing.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, because often
Oh,
it's not with seasoned about the tool. Yeah, I would say it's like with the flashy, like smoke and mirror sort of thing with all these tools. Now, a lot of practitioners and psychics will utilize a tool, and that's totally valid and that's totally fine. But as they get more seasoned, it's more about what's coming through and less about the actual object that they're using. So if also, I would say it's when they make really broad assumptions about things that could be relatable to anybody. Even if it does resonate, if
Hmm.
it's just like that, it's like, oh, I see the color blue. Does blue have something to do with you? Even if you're like, oh, I guess, my I wore a blue jersey when I played soccer in high school. It's like everybody's got something that they could associate with blue,
okay.
you know?
Hmm.
Okay.
So it's like, and usually if they're seasoned enough, they'll be able to give you something that really feels correct. If especially because they'll ask you, what's the intention that you want to set here? Is there somebody in particular you want to communicate? Also, if they're upfront about sometimes the person you're trying to communicate with might not be willing to communicate back. And so if they're
Hmm.
willing to admit that, that's a good sign
Okay.
Yeah.
because there are cases where people there are certain spirits that they're like, no, this is not good for you, you don't need to be communicating with me. I had a woman a few years ago who I used to give ghost tours of Savannah, and she specifically booked my tour because she wanted me to her husband had recently passed like 2 weeks before, and she was like, I want you to try to communicate with my husband. And I was like, listen, if your husband has not come to you yet, it's probably because it's not good for you.
Mm-hmm.
He's understanding that this is not a part of your grieving process. You're not ready for that communication because people can get obsessed with
Hmm.
this last tether with their loved one. And that's not good for anybody's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like if you talk to a reader and they're like, yeah, sometimes it just doesn't happen, and there can be a variety of reasons with it. I would trust that person personally.
Okay. That's good. And for those who have lost someone, like if they're speaking to them or whatever, do you think that the spirits actually listen? Like even though they can't directly communicate back, like say
Mhm.
someone was speaking out loud, like are they around, or do you have to kind of summon them, sort of, or they come for a reason?
So everybody's got their own technique with this. The most common one that I would say people utilize is they will set the intention, like, kind of go into a meditative state. They set an intention. A lot of times people will light a single candle as like a way to be like, hey, this is where we are. This is if you're such and such person related to them, you can step forward towards this candle. And this is where it varies when it comes to your ability. So some people can actually in their mind's eye see these people who are kind of gathered around this person. And then sometimes it's just hearing. Sometimes they are just getting messages coming through, like they'll just keep repetitively hearing a certain word or a certain letter. So oftentimes what you'll do is you'll just write down, if you have like a notepad with you, just write down anything that comes through, anything you see. But once the spirits kind of, you can tell they've come forward in some capacity, say, we're specifically wanting to speak to so and so. If so and so is here, can you please step forward? And most of the
Okay.
time, the other spirits will respect that. Not always.
Not the
Some
bratty
people are
ones.
pushier than
Yeah.
other,
Mhm.
not the bratty ones, but for the most part, they'll usually step back. But yeah, it really does depend on the gifts. Like for me, I can, if I get into that state, and I only read for like friends and family because it's just not for me
Yeah.
to make money from it. It just feels weird for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's like, I if I sit down and I get into that meditative state, I can usually like it's like almost like a dark room with the candle lit, and I see the person who I'm talking to, the who's getting the reading, and I can see their either spirit guides or whoever we're trying to get in contact with around them, almost like behind them,
Oh,
if that
wow.
makes sense.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah, and so usually that's for me how I can hear their voice come through, and they are like kind of speaking to me. And sometimes it can be a little tricky because it is a channel. Sometimes I'm like, y'all gotta speak up. I can't hear you. I
Yeah.
cannot understand you. But it's otherwise, like that's just for me how it goes. But I know some other really seasoned psychic practitioners who are fully hearing. They're just like, I keep hearing this word or I keep hearing this letter, like, and so they're like, it's coming up so much. What do you think that means? Does that resonate with you? Are we talking to the right person, or do we need to try to switch to something? You
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Well, I could keep doing this all day long.
I know. Oh my gosh, it's so
Unfortunately, we
fun.
do gotta go.
mm,
But thank you so much for coming on and like giving us so much info and advice and everything. And I'm sure this is gonna be like an amazing episode.
Yes, we're really
well, thank
excited.
y'all.
Yes, and thank you so much for just touching on so many elements, because I feel like for some people, paranormal activity is like cool and exciting, and like there's that fear element, but then there's the other people that are like, well, when it comes to loved ones, and there's that more peaceful and wanting to
Hmm.
connect that way. So I think it's really cool that we were able to cover sort of both realms of that. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for having me. Yeah. It's always really nice when I get to actually talk about my abilities and things like that. Because I really haven't talked publicly about it until we started the podcast like 4 years ago. Other than that, it was like literally, if you're not my family or like my best friend, you did not know about it. So it's
Yeah.
always really nice to be able to share it.
No, we appreciate it. And is there anything that you would like us to, do you have anything coming up or anything that we can promote?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our next investigation, we're going to investigate the Mars Theater in Springfield, Georgia. We're
Hmm.
really excited. They asked us to come out because they want to just, learn more about the spirits that are there. Super tiny town, really awesome theater that's connected to the last theater we just investigated. So, I'm interested to see what parallels we get through that. But otherwise, Y'all can follow us on social media under Haunted City Podcast, pretty much every single platform. And my personal handles are Madison Ray Timmons. But yeah, that's about what we got going on for right now.
Perfect. And we will be
Yeah.
sure to link everything. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have
See
a
you
great rest
guys.
of your
We'll
day,
see you
y'all.
next week.
Yes,
Bye.
bye.